Most men burn down their own house just to keep someone else warm. They sacrifice their time, their goals, their mental peace for people who don't deserve it. The Stoics called this madness. Look around you. Watch the men you know. Watch how they abandon their friendships the moment a woman shows interest. Watch how they check their phones obsessively, measuring their worth by how quickly she responds. Watch how they suppress their opinions, soften their convictions, reshape their entire personalities just to avoid conflict. This is not love. This is slavery wearing the mask of devotion. Seneca once wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Nowhere is this more true than in our relationships. The constant anxiety about what she is thinking, the endless interpretation of her words, her silences, her attention given elsewhere. Men construct entire prisons of suffering in their minds, and then wonder why they feel trapped. The symptoms are everywhere, constantly seeking approval from a partner who withholds it, abandoning personal goals to keep someone happy, tolerating disrespect because the alternative seems worse, measuring self-worth by how much attention or affection is received, and perhaps most destructive of all, obsessing over text responses, social media activity, and perceived slights that may exist only in imagination. The stakes are not small. We are talking about years of your life spent serving someone else's needs while your own potential withers, the slow death of self-respect, and the eventual realization that, despite giving everything, you were never truly loved for who you are, because you stopped being yourself long ago. The Stoics faced these exact struggles 2,000 years ago. Seneca counseled friends who had lost themselves in destructive relationships. Epictetus, a former slave who understood dependency better than any free man, taught that freedom begins in the mind. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, struggled to love a wife rumored to betray him publicly, yet maintained his dignity throughout. These were not cold men. They were not detached from love. They understood something far more valuable, that love without self-mastery is bondage. Consider Marcus Aurelius. Throughout his reign, he heard persistent rumors about his wife Faustina. Roman historians whispered of affairs with gladiators and senators. The gossip was relentless. His advisors urged him to publicly denounce her, or worse. Yet this was the woman who had borne him 13 children, who had faced tremendous grief with him as they lost many of those children. The whispers reached every corner of the empire, and yet Marcus remained silent. How do you maintain dignity when the person closest to you may be dishonoring you publicly? How do you love someone who potentially betrays you? And how do you do this when the entire empire is watching, waiting to see if the philosopher king will act on emotion or principle? Marcus chose a response that confused his contemporaries, but revealed the depth of Stoic understanding. He never publicly condemned Faustina. When she died, he honored her memory, even deifying her, an extraordinary gesture. His private journal reveals his approach. He wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." He understood that her actions were outside his control, but his response, his dignity, his commitment to his own principles, these were entirely within his power. He chose to focus on what he could control, his own character. The French historian Ernest Renan described Marcus's attitude toward his wife as showing inexorable gentleness, not weakness, not blind acceptance, gentleness born from strength. His restraint and dignity became legendary. The gossips who sought to humiliate him are forgotten. His wisdom endures. The Stoics developed a core principle that applies directly to every relationship you will ever have. They called it the dichotomy of control, the fundamental distinction between what is within your power and what is outside your power, your judgments, your actions, your character, your responses. These are within your control. Her feelings, her opinions, her behaviors, her love, these are not. Peace in relationships comes from focusing entirely on the former and accepting the latter. Seneca wrote in his letters to Lucilius, "The wise man is self-sufficient, that he can do without friends, not that he desires to do without them." This creates the paradox of Stoic love. You can love more deeply when you do not need the love returned, because your worth does not depend on receiving it. Epictetus, who was born into slavery and gained his freedom, taught explicitly that whoever would be free, let him wish nothing, let him decline nothing which depends on others, else he must necessarily be a slave. This is not about becoming cold. Epictetus very clearly taught that affection for spouses, children, even for friends or one's country, is a component of the fully Stoic life. The goal is not to eliminate love. It is to love freely rather than desperately, to give without becoming empty, to maintain your dignity without becoming callous. The ancients left us more than philosophy. They left us a blueprint for dominance over the self. Subscribe to Inner Imperium to uncover what they knew. Marcus Aurelius had to maintain his dignity while ruling an empire and facing public humiliation. You might only have to navigate a difficult conversation or a relationship that drains your energy, but the principles remain the same. What would it look like to apply these principles in practice? The Stoics did not leave us with vague ideals. They left us with clear guidance. Here are 7 Stoic rules the ancient philosophers left us, rules modern men violate at their own peril. Rule 1. Never chase validation. Before any action in a relationship, ask yourself, am I doing this to receive approval or because it aligns with my values? Epictetus taught that if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Stop measuring your worth by likes, texts, or attention received. Build your sense of self on your own achievements and character, not on how others respond to you. Rule 2. Never abandon your purpose, your mission, your goals, your self-development. These must remain constant, regardless of relationship status. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations while commanding armies on the frontier. His purpose never stopped. Seneca continued his philosophical work even in exile. Schedule non-negotiable time for your purpose each day. When asked to sacrifice your goals for a relationship, pause and ask, would a man I respect do this? Rule 3. Never tolerate disrespect. Musonius Rufus taught that relationships must be built on mutual respect. When disrespected, respond with calm dignity, not anger, not aggression, but clear boundaries. State your boundary once, clearly, then act accordingly. You cannot control whether respect is given. You can control whether you accept disrespect. Marcus Aurelius noted that kindness flows from a position of strength. True respect requires self-respect first. Rule 4. Never neglect yourself for others. When Emperor Nero ordered Seneca to take his own life, his wife Paulina declared she would die alongside him, a gesture of such devotion that it transformed how Seneca understood self-care. Seneca learned from his wife Paulina that caring for himself was a way of caring for her. He wrote, "Since I cannot persuade her to love me more bravely, she manages to persuade me to love myself more devotedly." When you abandon your health, your friendships, your interests for another person, you destroy the very man she was attracted to. Maintain your body. Maintain your friendships. Continue your education. A man who abandons himself has nothing left to give. Rule 5. Never make decisions from desperation. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Before making any major relationship decision, pause. Ask yourself, am I acting from fear of loss or from a place of strength? The Stoics practiced imagining the worst outcome to realize it is survivable. You can lose any relationship and still thrive. Decisions made from fear are almost always wrong. Rule 6. Never expect more than you invest in yourself. Musonius Rufus wrote, "You will earn the respect of all if you begin by earning the respect of yourself. Before expecting loyalty, become someone worthy of loyalty. Before expecting devotion, develop yourself into someone who deserves devotion. Work on your virtue, your character, your capabilities." The quality of relationship you can attract is directly related to the quality of man you become. Rule 7. Never forget that her actions are not your control. Epictetus opened his Enchiridion with the dichotomy of control. Some things are in our control and others not. You cannot control whether she stays, whether she is faithful, whether she appreciates you. You can only control your character, your actions, and your response to whatever happens. Release the desperate need to control outcomes. Focus entirely on being the best version of yourself. What changes when these principles are mastered? The man who once checked his phone obsessively now pursues his work with focus. The man who abandoned his friends for her attention now maintains the relationships that sustain him. The man who measured his worth by her approval now builds his sense of self on his own achievements. This is not about becoming indifferent. It is about becoming free, free from the desperate need for validation, free from anxiety about outcomes you cannot control, free to love genuinely without attachment that destroys both you and the love itself. Marcus Aurelius faced public humiliation and maintained his dignity. Epictetus was born a slave and became the freest man in Rome. Their secret was not indifference. It was understanding where their power truly lay. You cannot control whether you are loved, but you can control whether you remain a man worthy of love, including your own. The Stoics never promised that following these principles would guarantee happy relationships. What they promised was something more valuable: freedom. The question is not whether this works. The question is whether you have the discipline to practice it. Stop burning down your own house to keep someone else warm. You can give generously without giving yourself away. You can love deeply without becoming a slave. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years ago. Now you know it too. The mirror does not lie, neither does this philosophy. Subscribe to Inner Imperium for more uncomfortable truths that forge stronger men. Share in the comments. What part of yourself have you abandoned in pursuit of someone else's approval? And what would it take to reclaim it?